I sent out the payroll by departments today as well. So that's every single employee plus vacancies for next year that we can look at and make some adjustments if needed. So. All right, folks, look at this meeting. Call the meeting to order. Counselor Kelly, I haven't.
He's was in the hospital last I checked.
Oh my God. I did not hear that.
Yeah, so I guess he isn't here.
Okay. I didn't.
'Cause I don't think he was out yet. He was dehydrated.
Okay. Sorry, that
Anyway,
was, sorry, that was a nice street. I know Counselor Talon is excused tonight. She had a tragedy. Counselor Bob is joining us remotely. Hi, Caitlin, how are you? Call this meeting to order. It's 5:03 p.m. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2021 Finance Community Development meeting. Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Moore. Any changes, deletions, updates? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 2.1 draft resolution approving parking equipment purchase and related services from IPS Group Inc. Motion by Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion on this is the council approved the pay resolution to purchase and move forward with the kiosk system. This is the execution of that contract.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted to
Yes.
comment. I mean, I'm not against the park meters at all. I wish I could have waited on each one because
Understood.
obviously you know for a while, but I'm not against it.
Understood.
Just want to say that.
Yeah, it's a valid point, especially when you look at the beach and where everything else where these are going to be located. Per the 2022 proposed mayor's proposed budget, there is an increase in revenues from parking due to this. The ideal situation is that, this does, really target the long-term parking. It doesn't impact on-street parking. On-street parking is still going to be free for 2 hours. In combination with this, we're still working towards the permitting system, the citywide permitting system. That's something that we need to work out with our legislative partners to create that districted permitting system. So, okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Carried. This 2.2 is actually a draft resolution authorizing budget transfer, rec complex fund for gym building repairs. I'll take a motion by Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion.
Yep, what is this?
Yeah, sure. This is for a number of, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, this is not the window fix, correct? This is the.
No, this is a number of issues that have come up with the roof at the city rec center, and as the landlord, we are responsible for making those repairs. And it's also in part to reallocate money within the rec complex fund to cover a few of the operational losses that the YMCA has experienced in their first few months of operating the building. One of the provisions in the lease agreement was that the city would essentially backstop any operational losses with several outs that we built into the city just to minimize our liability. I actually just received the detailed breakdown. In July of 21, the Y on an operational basis was about $2,000 in the red. In August of this year, they were about $1,200 in the red. So it's going in the right direction, and as additional memberships come online as we get into the winter months and exercising outside becomes less attractive to most people, we should be looking at an operational profit, at which point the sharing mechanism that was also included in the lease would kick in, and the city would receive 40% of any monies in excess of break even for operation of the facility.
Any further discussion? Did that answer your question?
It does, but I had a question, but I don't know if it's connected to this spending resolution. I think there's some reports that we received from, well, they were in our packet of documents that we got by email, and it said like And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it came from you, but it looked like YMCA costs.
Yes, that was the report that Matt Miller was just
Yes,
mentioning.
so, but it was the title, and like I said, I don't have it in front of me. It
Do we
was
have a
the,
copy
ti-
of that?
it was,
Ms.
it
Conlon?
was the titles of the report that I wasn't clear on, like, it was like best case
Oh,
scenario. Is it in here?
So, yeah, it should be in the detailed packet of all the full.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Okay.
You got it in your email.
I got it, yeah, I got it in an email, and that's what I was just saying. I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, here.
During our ongoing discussion with YMCA about how this is all going to work, they presented a number of budget scenarios to us.
Here you are.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They
Thank you.
insisted upon the city backstopping any operational losses, but we wanted to see details as to what exactly they expected from an operational standpoint. They provided 4 different scenarios.
Right, okay.
Not so good all the way to great. The trend that is being followed by the numbers that we provided the first 2 months is aligning with the second most optimistic scenario, trending towards profitability if the trend holds this month.
Okay,
There's
so,
a not so good scenario, a better scenario.
right,
Not so good,
right.
Good, better, and best.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, we're looking at the better scenario right now.
The porridge is just right. The other part to this is, because this, you're correct, Counselor Gibbs, and that a part of this transfer is to offset the agreed
Okay, that's what I
a
thought.
loss for YMC operations per that agreement, okay? One thing to note is that all of these funds are still being, thank you, all of this transfer is still happening within recreation complex. So there's no impact to there's no direct impact of pulling money out of the general fund.
So not right now, but if the rec complex runs red, there will be a transfer out of the general fund
It would
at the end of the
be
year.
really, I think the best interest of getting that fund back to our.
Uh-huh.
To take it out of the general fund in a year to
Right.
eliminate the cash deficit as well as cover the deficit that's in the fund balance.
Right, and if I recall correctly,
280,000.
okay, so last month, I think if I recall correctly, you said it was gonna be about 300,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked back and, the AUD from 2020 has a $280,000 negative fund balance.
Right.
So we would at least want to cover that much.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, by doing that, you're going to cover the negative cash balance of 230 that's there right around. Well, actually, it's not really negative 230 now. It looks like it's 23,000 negative, but that's because we received $147,000 for the Chaplain House that is being moved into
Right.
the reserve.
Okay, right.
So, when that happens, that entry is going to happen tomorrow. Then we'll be back down to about a $230,000 loss.
Okay, so is the total transfer out of the general fund gonna be 200,000?
No,
That's what I thought, because
we would add, we would add to it to cover the deficit from last year, plus what's there this year, which is in $300,000.
so overall total, what are you anticipating?
Well, we've already approved. Look at this now. We're approved right now for the year. General funds so far this year.
For rec complex?
For rec complex. Actual right now. Actually, it's 409,000 right now. Going to be 475, excuse me, 476. That's with all the budget adjustments, appropriation adjustments we did. The one that just hit a target is 115,000, I think it was.
For
135, but we just moved over for the Saratoga Associates Investigatory Studies.
Mhm.
So that increased it to 475. We're at 409 actual. So you're talking 475 this year plus the 280 deficit from last year.
Okay.
That's what's, 409 is moved already.
Mm-hmm.
And it still leaves a cash deficit out there of, what I said, about 123 plus about 150, so 173,000. But the deficit on the books from last year accumulated to 280,000. We should eliminate that.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sort
I
of.
know it's a lot to think about.
No, it's
Of
like,
course, we're also looking at next year,
Right.
459 is the transfer next year for the rec complex, so that's gonna add to, the reduction of the general funds, available fund balance to fund the rec complex, like the library does, and like we're gonna do for parking for the first time as well. But, it all accumulates to keeping the funds in balance.
mhm. Oh, Mayor, did you want this back?
No, you can keep it.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you.
Yeah, and just to reiterate the mayor's point, everything that Rich set aside is simply the office money that's already been appropriated within our complex fund for this year.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I got you. That's all you. Okay. 3.1 draft resolution authorizing budget transfer general fund judgments and claims motion. Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Gibbs, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Draft resolution authorizing budget adjustment general fund municipal buildings repair, motion by Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Gibbs. On this one, this is a emergency roof repair that was performed this year. As many of you know, the roof in City Hall leaks. We do have a capital improvement project, I think scheduled for 23, 22. This should be a patch that will hold for maybe a year or so. But we do have a capital project budgeted for 2023 to do a roof replacement at City Hall. But this is an emergency patch repair, unbudgeted. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Let's see, September month-end report. Everybody received that report. And if you do have any questions, I know Richard spent, I don't remember how long, maybe 30, 40 minutes going through that report last time. None of the data changes on that report. That's a pretty standard report provided to the committee.
Anything that you think that we should be updated? I mean, I read the report and saw where we are with the unallocated fund balance expenditures and revenues and so forth. Anything that you think we should discuss, Richard?
Well, I know we went over the trying to true up the fire department for year-end close, so it doesn't have a deficit in the accounts that are very large. We discussed that last week, and also a little bit of a controversial item. But the only thing I want to say about that, the big ticket issue in there was that there was only $50,000 budgeted in the June 2024 budget put together last year for 2021. Only 50,000 put aside for separation from retirement. The lion's share of this adjustment, they spent 309,000 on people retiring. So 259,000 of that major adjustment that was being discussed was already spent money on separation. Can't do anything about it. It's got to be done. It hurts. It sucks. I know, unfortunately, the way it is the way it is. And of course, the overtime is looking like it's going to run $200,000 over. So that's why there's another piece in there. It's the lion's share of the whole thing. The rest of it's moving between accounts to balance out their expenditures that they need to make for the rest of the year. A lot of their accounts were underfunded last year, as the entire city budget was underfunded. We don't know that. It was an austerity budget put together in June that was never really adjusted up to account for the operations that we have to do this year. So just the discussion of that is a key piece to closing out the budget year. I'm going to be looking to give more budget adjustments to make sure that we don't run afoul of being in deficit, meaning we've spent more than we've appropriated. So I know that's a long-winded discussion about let's once again keep our funds in balance. That's the point of doing it. If you're budgeted for what you're going to expend and you do that, and stay within it, there's never an issue. As you've seen this year, there's a huge amount of budget adjustments going through. That's all because of the way things were budgeted last year.
Yeah,
So that's about it.
okay.
The accounts are accumulated just the same as last time. You'll see that, you know, a lot of things are tracking right at 75% or lower. I think healthcare or benefits across the board in the city is down below the 75% level, which should be at the end of September. But of course, the overtime is a big issue.
Okay,
And the separation pay too.
thank you, Richard.
But if you have any questions about any of the numbers, please let me know.
Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the month-end report? 3.4, discussion on unappropriated budget and corresponding expenditure report. That was also sent out. At this point, the really three major funds, the general fund, water sewer, or I should say general fund and water sewer, have seen those expenditures, the lion's share of those expenditures. When you do all the calculations, and you look at what has been, and I don't mind going line by line over each of those adjustments. Fundamentally, a lot of that has been, as Richard said, emergency spending based on austere budgets, understandable. But also just keep in mind that some of it has been improvement, beach improvement, demolition of the Anderson building, demolition of the derelict property at the beach house, derelict property at Sailors Beach. $25,000 alone in park improvements based on just the need to improve the parks from deferred maintenance. Let's see, $109,000 of the 834 is reimbursable. That's a grant fund that needed to be expended and then reimbursed. 91,000 was a carryover from a PO from 2020 into 2021, which again needed to be canceled, backed out of 2020, and then expended in 2021 for a vehicle purchase. Let's see, what else?
The latest one is at 130,000 for the investigatory.
130 for a significant amount of work for beach, which needed to happen regardless of what happens in the future for beach development. Okay. Emergency maintenance at the gym, emergency maintenance at the elevator. We fixed the vendor building, the information booth across the street. So we'll have an information booth and bathrooms downtown for the next kind of cycle of public events. Failed sump pump at the police station was $14,000. Animal control contract that was unfortunately unfunded in the 21 budget, but the contract was signed. So it just seemed like a miscommunication between what was funded and then the contract ended up getting signed anyway. So that needed to be paid for. $60,000 in IT, right? So we've invested a significant amount of monies into securing our IT system in the city of Plattsburgh. $10,000 to improve the dog park at the city beach. So a lot of these have been a balance because there's unfunded, under budgeted insurance, $100,000 in a payout settlement. So some of these things are certainly the city's approach and the council's approach to reinvest into parks and beach, fix up some of the things that we let go over several years now. Goes back years and years, several administrations on what kind of hasn't been taken care of. So we're trying to play a little bit of catch up, which means that we've invested a significant amount of money into parks and beach and municipal buildings. So that report was provided, and I tried to break it down so people could see where the money was being allocated. Make it a little bit, hopefully, more palpable. Any further discussion about the unappropriated budget and corresponding expenditures? 4.1, discussion of 2022 budget discussions. There was a number of questions that I received via email. I tried to respond via email and then provide some reports along with my response so that, not only could you see it in writing, but also see it in the worksheet. The budget summary that I provided, Exhibit A, also outlines at a high level some of the expenses and revenues per department and the percent change, the percent difference between the years, last year and this year. Alternatively, the sheet that I sent out earlier today goes, code by code, account by account, what's been increased, what's been decreased, the percentage difference between the 21 budget, revised budget versus the proposed budget. Not only that, but it also shows what was requested by departments and then what was actually changed for this proposed budget. So I try to give a good overview of not only what the department has requested, as we saw here, but also what changes were made post those meetings and then packaged as part of the 2022 budget proposal. Questions on how does the city generate 6.4%, 6.1% revenue in the general fund? Some of that is sales tax, some of that is property tax. There's a Councilor Moore could probably explain this better. The difference between the tax rate and the tax levy. The tax levy is a function of the rate times the assessed value. We did have an increase in assessed value as per exhibit, I believe, towards the back. I did include the assessed value chart and the tax rate chart in this budget. Exhibit G is the tax levy trend. The tax levy, the proposed tax levy for 2022 is 11.639 million. That matches roughly about where our tax levy was in 2019 with a 0% tax rate increase from last year. The tax rate would remain the same, a 0% increase in the tax rate. Last year was 11.37, this year is 11.37. The levy is a function of the total taxable value, which in 2021, this is now the first time the city of Plattsburgh is over a $1 billion taxable assessed value. Total taxable property in the city of Plattsburgh is roughly around $1.5 billion. 500 million of that is untaxed.
And that
495 around.
hasn't been reassessed or reevaluated for some 20.
Correct.
years.
Correct. So there's opportunity, and we talked about this, the opportunity of doing a full citywide reassessment of residential business and, that whole situation. It's still something that we're RFPing out there kind of thing, right? So there's also opportunity a couple years down the line to make a significant impact in the full assessed value of city property. So a function of that revenue is not only an increased citywide assessed value of $1.023 billion, which is a 2.4% increase from 2020, but the rate itself just provides that about $275,000 of extra revenue, even maintaining the same rate, tax rate. The increases in sales tax, we saw this year a significant increase in the projected sales tax.
Is that, I'm sorry,
Yeah, please.
is that on page 1? I'm looking at the numbers, excuse me, is that on page 1? The 1120 non-property taxes? Is that what that is?
Page 1.
Yeah, it's right in like page 1 of the report. It's numbered on the top right corner of the Munis report.
Oh, yeah, Munis report, let me see.
Excuse me.
Munis report, non-property taxes would be $4.37 million.
So that's sales tax.
That's it, that is sales tax,
Okay.
correct.
That's what.
So if you look at the projected 21, that's almost $400,000 increase from what is actual for 2021. Now, right now, we're about 16% above estimate for sales tax in 2021. We're expecting about a $500,000 surplus over what was budgeted, anticipated to come in for sales tax. Not only that, but we do have according to the census, we do have a slight 100-person increase in the city of Plattsburgh, which our sales tax is taken by population,
Is that 100?
100 people.
Well, that's the most increase that Plattsburgh has seen in about 10 years.
You know, it's curious. I haven't seen the chart, but people are
10
like,
people a year, and it's 20 that die
Yeah.
a year.
So it's funny because it's like you hear people like all of the population, everybody's population is kind of dwindling. We gained 100 people, right? Maybe
In the city?
150, yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
thought the census population said we were 19,600, not 20,000.
I'll have to go back and check, but the count, like I was speaking with Zerl, he's like, yeah, you guys increase and you'll get a little bit of a bump in sales tax because of it, not a lot, but our bump in sales tax is primarily because of the shopping in the
Increase.
city.
So how are you anticipating, or how are you calculating or anticipating the 437303 for 2022?
That is a projection provided to the city and to all municipalities by the county.
It's a
That
projection
is
by the
based on
county.
their projection, and that's a projection that we are comfortable with, and so it's a
Okay.
conservative projection. And as we've seen, and Richard can run back between years of what the county has provided as a projection versus what the city has actually taken in. And I think you'll find that that projection is pretty spot on, if not a little conservative, and we make a little bit of extra, considering. For example, last year, 2020, when it was expected that the city was going to be, well, the county really was going to be down about 20% in sales tax, we were only really down 3% in sales tax, but we still hit the estimated income, sales tax income.
What is UGR tax?
Utility gross receipts tax.
What does that mean?
It's 1% of the gross sales value of any telecommunication company that does business through the city of Plattsburgh. Any revenue
Oh.
that they earn from the city gets 1%. And not to be confused with cable TV, I think last month I was talking about the CATV, it's not 1% from the CATV, it's actually 5% for them, because cable TV has a higher rate to collect that. It's a local tax that we're allowed to, let's say,
Levy?
levy or impose, is the word I was looking for, on these telecommunication companies that allow by the state of New York. All we can do is have a local law adopted to say we're going to follow the rules for New York State, and we get to collect that 1%. So there's returns filed, and they pay the taxes quarterly to us, and collected in this city chairman's office.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have another.
That's not much of a windfall because they just put that back on the backs of the customer.
Yeah.
So you
Yes, I know.
end up paying- It gets paid to the cable company and they pay it to the city, but
So-
we get charged for that.
So I have
Cable
another,
company's 5%, but all the other telecommunication companies are 1%, and we're currently fighting with New York State Electric and Gas for additional revenue because they've been withholding across the state. Dean and the mayor have seen all the communications that we've got coming to the NICOM representative called Computel, where they're trying to negotiate with them to pay their fair share to all the city's revenue.
so I had another question about AIM funding, which is on page 3 of the Munis report. So we have steadily budgeted 2,119,000 and some change, and then I see that we have a bump here of 2,000,006.
Yep.
So what accounts for that?
The 2,119,000 was last year when the
Mhm.
main funding was reduced by
20%.
That was refunded to the city during 2021. And they said to go back up to the regular aid funding of 2.8 million.
Correct.
2.868, I can't remember.
Fundamentally over the years, AIM funding has been reallocated downwards for municipalities. And this year, AIM funding has been restored. Part of what the city is lobbying through NICOM and what NICOM has been trying to accomplish is reevaluating the AIM calculation. That calculation has not been, it was 2008, I believe, when that calculation was created. You know, I don't know how to do the math, 14 years later, it seems like it would be fair to recalculate aid to municipalities. So we're looking at trying to press on that some for the future. Also, other things that we're looking for and looking to push the state towards is a chip style program for water sewer infrastructure. As most people know, we get what is it, $1 million in CHIPS funding that covers our roads, right?
Yeah.
Road improvements. That is not, you know, that is, you know, as most of us know, it's built towards capital project, road improvements. There's some equipment funding that can come out of CHIPS funding. But to have a similar program for water sewer infrastructure would be a significant impact for the city. Alternatively, what we haven't talked about as a line of revenue is when we begin to spend ARPA money. Right now, if you look at accounting principle, it's considered right now a liability because it is owed back to, at any moment, back to the federal government. So as we brought in 900,000, how much was it that we brought in this year?
96 and then 4,000 more, so we just got over $1 million.
So we got just over $1 million in ARPA funds. That money comes in two payments, one this year, one next year. We have 4 years to pay to use it. There's some flexibility in how it can be used. Infrastructure projects, water, sewer, road, broadband type of infrastructure. We look at a lost revenue calculation provided by the federal government to look department by department to see lost revenues. But once we do decide to leverage that fund, that does convert to revenue for the city. So for example, if we said, you know what, this year, rather than paying the 130 out of the general fund for infrastructure projects at the beach, we leverage ARPA funds for that, put that money back in the general fund, and then use that 135 as revenue for the city to pay for these projects. It's an opportunity, it's available to us. The question is, how does the city and how should the city responsibly leverage those funds for those types of initiatives? That's the question.
You'll see the difference in the August report and the September report.
The cash
August report contained that as a revenue item. September doesn't, it's been removed and put into a liability. The cash is still here. But we just transferred it from a revenue to a liability per the accounting from New York State that was released on how to deal with the ARPA funding. And now as we spend it, when we spend it, we'll be debiting expense, we'll be crediting the cash and debiting that liability and recognizing the benefit that way.
Okay.
And it's reportable back, right? So there's a reporting mechanism that we have to report back to the federal government how this money gets.
And each piece we spend will also recognize an expense and a revenue at the time. So even though nothing's been recorded as revenue yet, the cash is here and the liability to spend it is there. So as we spend it, we'll recognize that funding.
So,
And the aid funding, once again, has been restored to normal levels. That level has been with the city for, I'd say, 10 years now.
okay.
It used to go up ratably every year, but they stopped doing that. They stopped requiring us to do the aid funding reporting, and they said, we're just gonna level it out and leave it like it is. But like the mayor said, it's time when New York State took a look at that and to start calculating.
Absolutely.
Okay. So on page 29 of the Munis report, under intergovernmental charges, Town of Plattsburgh, SUNY, and State Park, we have an increase there of 180,000. What accounts? This is page 29 of the Munis report. And it's under category intergovernmental charges.
That would be
And-
in the water fund?
So if you.
Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
so if you look to
It's in
the
water
left, if you
fund.
look to the left of all the account numbers, and you see the account number starts in 5 or 4. or
Oh, that's
3 or
water?
2, those are indication of the individual funds.
Yeah, I knew that.
Right, yeah, but I don't mean to speak at you, Counselor Gibbs, as if you don't know, I'm just kind of generally speaking, because I know that, you know, Canales and Dallin, who might watch this, and Counselor Bob may not.
Which page was that?
That's
aware.
page 29 of the Munis report.
Page 29.
Yeah, so
That
it's,
should be in the,
it's under sewer.
fund.
Yeah,
Sewer revenues for SUNY. So as most of us know, the town of Plattsburgh does have we do have a sewer agreement with the town of Plattsburgh. That we process their sewer. John says 8, I say 6. I'll lean on John. 8 lines that come in to the city of Plattsburgh to process sewer that comes in from the town. That's metered, and we get paid for that, right? So if you look at the 21 projection or the 21 actual, that is what that looks like to date. Typically, that is the revised budget, $700,000. That's typically what we charge them. The SUNY is a little different. We were under contract with SUNY for quite some time. At, I believe it was like $1.70 something. I don't want to say per gallon, I think per million gallons, but you know, again, John can explain that a little bit better. But that contract ended, and that fee has increased to the normal rate at which we would normally charge them for processing their sewer. So that is an indication of why that amount has changed to
Okay.
$180,000 in that year.
okay. And I had some questions about it. There are a lot of percent changes in, I think now that I'm looking at it, I see it's all sewer funds. Starting on page 33 of the Munis report. No, not that part. Never mind, not that part. It was, whoa.
Whoa.
Starting page 34 of the Munis report,
Yes.
where you've got the 2021,
Yes.
and then you've got these things that are
Yes.
kind of zeroed out. What happened with this?
So when John was here, he explained that a lot of these accounts were collapsed into 1 or 2 separate accounts, which is why at the top of page 34, you'll see some of these funds go up 194, 200%. Some of these funds some of these accounts are no longer used,
Okay,
and they were kind of collapsed into one or 2 different accounts. Even on page 33, you'll see account 5813053. Those accounts, you can see an increase 160 something% for the same reason. And then there's other accounts on that page that have gone to either 0 or they're being increased elsewhere.
okay, so is that the reason why I had to leave partway through that presentation that John gave that night, so I apologize, but on page 31, under the WRRF, the Water Recovery Fund there, is that the reason why there was a 97% increase?
Correct.
So it looked like when I went through this the first time, it looked like a $500,000 increase in payroll. I'm like, what is happening here?
That is.
So is that why it was
that's
collapsed
accurate.
in?
Correct, because some of those folks were being split across multiple
Well, that explains
funds
quite a
or
bit.
lines of business.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I
we're not
freaked out a little
tripling
bit.
We're not tripling John's
I was like,
empire.
what
How
is
much of this
happening?
has to do with the impact demand charge as well?
Not
Not much.
none of this right now. Impact demand charge was something that was implemented in 2020, I believe.
Correct. That's in the water.
Right, and that is kind of like flowed through at this
Okay.
point,
There.
so.
No, you don't have to. I just. I'm sorry.
Counselor Bob, how you doing up there?
I'm good. I've got my report following along.
And basically, John said that they were eliminating the VOD department and the SS department. SS is suspended solids. They used to measure that. They don't have to anymore. And the VOD, biological something and something that they don't have to do it anymore. So they all just include it as the flow department, which is now been renamed WRRF.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was very helpful and I really appreciate that.
A couple of things about 2022 that I would strongly recommend the council consider. As per the proposed budget is moving parking over to PD. Part of the reason is the 2 parking enforcement officers report to PD. They can ticket, they are enforcement officers,
Thanks.
they can
so much.
write violations,
I
not for
just know, I
just
just my eyes.
parking, but for lapsed registration inspection. A laborer that works out of parking or is paid out of the parking fund would remain paid out of that parking fund. That person's employment is paid through the special assessment district and is primarily used for downtown improvements and cleanup. But it just honestly, in my mind, and operationally makes the most sense to have parking operate out of PD. Matt would hopefully still agree with that assessment. Alternatively, looking at the rec complex, considering that the gym is no longer under the management of, or I should say direct management of the city. The crate is no longer under the direct management of the city. It would be my recommendation to find a way to collapse that fund into its own, still remain as its own separate fund, but collapse the individual departments in that fund into one. That way it just remains essentially parks, which I certainly in my heart consider the beach to be a park. But it would also include other parks, Melissa Penfield and all the other ball fields that we manage, separate from the crate. Although there's still expenditures and improvements to be made, but that can still be made in that fund, but separate out of trying to manage 4 different departments in one fund, when
Okay.
it really operationally doesn't make any more sense, considering. So that's that. We can talk about staffing increases, changes for next year as well, if you'd like. I certainly don't mind having that conversation if you
Well, one of the,
so please.
yeah, one of the things that I had asked, which is question 4 in the email that everybody has a copy of,
Yes,
the OPEB costs as a result of increases for numbers
Yep.
1 and 2. And so it says here, Richard can answer this better.
correct. Richard is the expert at this.
Yes,
even
I know
I'm-
you are.
You know, unfortunately, I'm still trying to get my own head around this one, so.
Actually, we have a guy in work group called Vincent Casano, that's a real expert. He's always doing this calculation for us and analyzing, it, making sure it's done right. As far as OPEB is concerned, if we're talking about raises regarding OPEB, the one has nothing to do with the other. Salary increases aren't part of it because OPEB is other post-employment benefits, meaning healthcare. And that's healthcare.
Can't hear, Richard, if you can walk to the right, sorry.
Caitlin can't hear?
No, you're too far away.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it was just a little low. It's easier when they're close. Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you, Richard.
the OPEB cost is other post-employment benefits projected out to the end of the life of the last person that's going to be alive for our current workforce and our retirees. It's about an 85-year projection of the future costs of our healthcare.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's nothing to do with current cost. All the current cost is paid for currently. We pay about $7 million a year, give or take, for healthcare costs for current and retired employees. So all you're looking at with this OPEB analysis is what's the future cost for all of the healthcare. Of course, it's a big shock and awe number, 270 some million projected to be spent for 85 years. The actuaries have put the numbers together. They'll only say reliably, they can tell you what it's going to look like 10 years out. They say the next 75 years is anybody's guess, but they'll put a number down. So then they take that 270 some million and then they'll discount that to the present value based on interest rates, cost trends, and so forth, government regulations. And they'll say, oh, it's about 150, 170 million currently. Well, that's a number everybody is saying we should set that aside right now and put it somewhere so it earns interest and pays for the future healthcare costs. And you can do that if you're a company, but you can't do it if you're a government. Can't do it in New York State. Not approved to reserve for this because it's not an actual cost. It's a future cost. So the cost of the OPEB increase would be number of permanent people that we're adding there. It looks like about 18 people that would have benefits. So you're looking at 600,000 per employee throughout the life of them, as far as that future OPEB cost discounted to the current value. That's roughly what the number is. If you look at 270 divided by 450 active employees and retirees, you're going to get about $600,000. And so 18 times it's 600,000, there's your OPEB addition. But remember, you can't pay that. You can't set it aside. You can't provide for it. You can't do anything with it, but you can pay it currently. And all the controllers and city managers that you talk to say, yeah, we pay OPEB as we go. Each year, we pay for our retirees' healthcare. Each year, we pay for our current active employees' healthcare. And that's as much as you can do unless you're a private company and you say, okay, I'm going to set some of this aside, put it in a fund, let it earn some interest. And then you look at that balance each year and you adjust it up or down based on your future calculations, and also consider what you're paying currently to reduce your costs currently that would come out of that fund if you were doing this type of thing. It's more complicated as you go forward with something like that. Private companies have to do it. Governments can't. So is that confusing enough?
It's a lot to
Put
process.
it another way, there's no way you would be able to cover that. Say you did want to put money aside for that, there's no way you could do that.
Well, we do it every year with what we actually pay.
Yes, correct. But I'm
We
just
pay as we
saying, if
go.
you were to try to put that money aside, it'd be impossible.
Well, you couldn't do it all at once unless you went on sort of some massive bond
Many
issue for 150 million and say, okay, I want to go and invest this. But they're not going to let you do that because then you're going to be arbitraging your bond borrowings over a longer period of time with maybe longer interest rates or longer term interest rates being higher. And the government's not going to let you do that either. They'll call that a violation of arbitraging funds. So yeah, it's a hard thing to try and conceive of. Yeah, it's a cost we're looking at, but remember, it can change anytime the government changes rules. Like our calculation went down 50 million in 1 year. And it was said, oh, that's because we changed healthcare plans. We didn't. Between 18 and 19, we didn't change healthcare plans one iota. They're still the same. What happened was the Cadillac tax was eliminated by Trump, which saved us 32 million. And the interest rates and the cost trends in the marketplace also went down. So that said that long-term forecast discounted to the present value was also a smaller number. So that's where we gained 50 million in it. We didn't do anything to change it. It just changed because of environmental circumstances.
Yeah, the biggest danger is it's highly sensitive to the insurance rates, what they cost. It's very, it can get hugely bigger, like say they went, we estimate at 4%. If it went to say 10%, like, you know, or something, that would make that number way, way bigger. It's more sensitive to that than anything, actually.
Yeah, it's also sensitive to the amount that's being contributed by the employees in retirement, which right now is technically zero. Unfortunately, back in 2006, in order to sell the self-funded insurance plans that were needed at the time for the city to reduce its cost by 40% a year, 40% a year for healthcare. This is back when Albany was saying to the North Country, we're pulling out of your healthcare rating environment. You're costing us too much money down here in Albany because your costs are higher than ours. So they pulled out, and the prediction was that the premium-based plan that the city was in at the time, traditional blue, is going to go up 40%. So the city said, we got to do something about that. So they went and self-funded it. Self-funding is saying, I'm giving you the same insurance, I'm just paying for it differently. Well, the union demanded, we want our cut. So somebody came up with a brilliant idea of taking our 25% contribution from employees and reducing it to 15. That hurt. And that also hurts this OPEB forecast too, reducing the contributions. We have no contributions in retirement to speak of. There's some that are coming into the contracts as we go forward. So the more we can get that imposed with a 15 or a 20% contribution in retirement from retirees, the less that OPEB impact's going to be long term.
So, so you said, take the 270 million, divide by 450, it gives you about 600,000. Multiply
but
by
then-
18 new employees,
Yeah.
and that gives the OPEB increase, which
Yeah,
is
it's about
10.
11 million. And then
Yeah,
I think you
11
have to
million.
discount it to the present value based on what that would be. So I don't know.
Discounted what, like 10%? Is it still 10, 10 or
You know, when I
5%?
look at the numbers, it's usually 274 million long-term,
Yeah.
discounted to like 170, 150 million short-term. So it just depends on the rates you're discounting to the present value. And that's all just saying, if I were to pay for it today,
Mhm.
put all that money aside today, and costs went up as predicted and interest rates earned as predicted, I'd have enough money to pay for all of it out into the future from what I'm putting aside today. That's how they look at this. Like Jeff said, where the hell are you gonna get $150 million, to set aside and do it? It's impossible. It's just a lot of money. So, but that would be the impact long-term. But once again, it's only a forecasted cost discounted to the present value. And it's still, even if we add 18 people, we'll be paying for their current costs and our healthcare costs every year as we go.
Okay, I'm sure I'm gonna have more questions as I think.
It's
Not
okay.
tonight, my eyes hurt.
This stuff can make your head hurt.
No, I do with you. I teach all day with this on and with the glasses. I have this constant hot air night between my glasses and my eyes. And I get to this point in the week and I just want to gouge them all out with a spoon. How's that for some nice imagery?
If we ever like to hear more, detailed explanation from an expert, this gentleman, Vincent Casano from Berkeley, and they've sent me the files already this year to start working on that. That's another one of those year-end things I told was coming together. We'll be able to get it to them before the end of the year this year instead of after, so that we can get our calculation for the GASB 75 OPEB
Mhm.
requirement. So if we ever want to have a meeting with him, a Zoom with him, he could go over the stuff and I'm sure explain it much better than I can.
So the nature of my inquiry is, I don't know if you recall back in August, you put together kind of like a rough 5-year plan of, what our revenue was, what our deficits were, and it was a forecast of 21 through 25. And it shows us running, these are the numbers that you came up with. It was like a rough Excel spreadsheet. Do you remember that? When
that was-
we had started working on the 5-year plan and then
That was the cleanest spreadsheet that I could find
Right.
from what Colin Reed left
Right.
over or had sent to me. And all I did was I cleaned it up for the actual information from 16
Mm-hmm.
through 20 that I knew at the time. And here's the budget for 21. And I kind of left everything out there for 22 through 25 or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And actually just talked to Jeff and Mike about that recently.
Right.
So that's the worksheet that I sent. So any of the prediction stuff out there, I really didn't take a look at. I just cleaned up the actual to the 2021 budget information and gave you the, fund balance roll forward.
Right. And it shows us running deficit out of.
Yeah, but I don't know what those assumptions were out there. Jeff might be able to talk more about those right now.
So
because
those
he and
were-
Mike have been looking at it and asking
Yeah,
questions.
we're almost there. We just have a few numbers we need to go over with you and understanding it's a forecast. This isn't like a budget that we're
Right.
projecting out there, but it's a forecast. If things stay the way pretty much they are, we plug in inflation rate.
Mhm.
Yeah,
things like
I
that.
forget
So
what the other assumptions were. There was like,
That was, we had another one.
there was an assumption for the increase in property values and we adjusted for that for the 2.43 that went up, took us up to the billion.
We were, I think we assumed they were running at about 1.5, I think.
What's
Previous
that?
years,
Inflation?
increases in assessment.
Yeah.
They had a bump this year, which I can tell you because my taxes to go up quick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody,
it's up
Well,
2.43.
not everybody,
just
it's
you.
very uneven, homeowners mostly.
I told him to come to your house.
And we're up to 1,023,000,023, and that's up from 999,444,777 last year, believe it or not. Yeah.
No, he's legit. That's so true.
Yeah.
We had a 3% increase in 2019, 3.85% increase in taxable properties, tax assessed value.
Mhm,
So that's one of the revenue items that's in that worksheet
mhm.
to predict an increase in the assessed value versus the property tax rates. But then there
So,
was expense assumptions in there as well.
so my concern, this is the reason for the inquiry, is how is all of this going to affect us next year and, 5 years out in terms of financial planning with a municipality that has really a finite amount of income resource. We don't have some enormous revenue fund coming in. We have AIM, we have sales tax. I'm missing one. We have AIM, sales tax, what am I missing? Oh, and property tax
Property
revenue,
tax.
right?
Don't forget that one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
So that's the reason for the inquiry. I'm trying to understand what is going to be the long-term impact of 1 and 2. And you were very clear about the OPEB, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the raise, the 2% raise for the managers, it's only a $9,870 some dollar impact to the general fund, 20,000 citywide. So it's a very small impact when it comes to that 2%, because it's only $1 million payroll for all the managers within the city of Plattsburgh that would be affected by that 2%. So that's one of those items. Now, the other 18 people I see in that response from the mayor, of course, you got to see if those people are replacements or if they're additions that had to be there and weren't there last year that were, austerity left out and are needed. I think the police department's looking at almost 10 people that they need to bring them up to the correct staffing level.
Yes, but to bring them to current staffing, I don't know if I'm gonna express this correctly. They are budgeted for 42 sworn officers this year. There are not 42 sworn officers in the department right now.
Right.
Right, so I guess this is one of the things I want to be able to talk about next week, when we have our public safety meeting, is being able to understand we are already budgeted for a certain number of people that we haven't filled those positions.
Right. I think 10 of
But,
them.
well, sorry, but you have to also understand the timing to be able to fill those positions.
Right,
So it's not like the fire department where the fire department can send somebody down and be trained in 6 weeks. We have an academy that has been getting pushed throughout this entire year. I believe it was supposed to start in like May or June. It's not gonna start until October, or November 1st. Then on top of that, that's 6 months for them to even come back into the cycle, and then another 6 months for them to actually be available to work on their own. In that time frame, in that 12-month time frame, we'll have another 5 retirements in the police department, meaning there's another 5 people that are gonna be out that need to get backfilled, that are not gonna get backfilled until sometime late summer, early fall of next year. So to look at the department as it is, just talking about the PD, right? Just to look at the department as it is, there is, I believe that there's 4 people right now, vacancies that have backfilled, and then 3 funded positions for this year, right? So they've got 7 people that they're looking to fill and put into the academy right now. Of that 7, right, as they get back into May, then you lose 5. Right, so you've only gained 2 total people in that department. Now, with all the promotions that have happened, there's certainly a need to fill in the patrol division, if you will, but I think PD's biggest challenge is the ability to fill positions when they become vacant, and they just don't have that ability to do. They gotta fill those positions when the academy starts. So for them, yeah, they're backfilling 7 this year. Jared will come and ask, based on his budget, to add an additional 3, even though they're not budgeted for 2021. His budget can support it, but, I also, needed to confirm with Rich that if they balance their book this year, how much money would they actually have for the rest of the year, given that their overtime is increasing. A lot of that overtime is increasing because they are losing people.
They can't run their shifts, I'm sure.
No, they can't. And then, we're getting into that, like around that Halloween season where there's more overtime. And then now we're going into a holiday season where there's going to be more overtime. And, without those people, then it's becoming a little stressful, for that staff because they're, some of the people are being forced in, right? Like, that's not great. To be called and say, hey, by the way, I know you might be hanging out with your family, but you need to come in. You're required to come in. And that's happening more and more that we care to admit.
So that's where I saw the majority of the numbers increase in headcount for next year.
Right.
Was
Well,
that-
something to consider there too is we have substantial IT costs that we don't know the full depth of at this point, that we need to bring up to the 21st century.
Right, and
So
that's the
we need to
reason
keep
for
that in the
my,
back of our mind that we will be spending some substantial money.
right, and that was the reason why I'm requesting the executive session on Monday. Because I met with Ms. Karofsky and had a one-on-one conversation with her and go over the report and match it to the budget, match it to the IT purchase, that package that we purchased a little while ago. And this is not a conversation we can have on the floor. So that's the reason for the
What
request.
package that we purchased?
So the whole SimQuest package, the IT package that was purchased by the citywide IT upgrades, whenever that was. I don't have it in my bag.
We did some of that in 2021 with the disaster recovery implementation.
Right.
That's a one-time cost, but we still have budgeted next year, their service agreement costs consistent with what it is this year, as well as
Yeah.
layer 8.
Mhm.
So
Right.
there's not cushion, I shouldn't say. Nobody likes that word. There's surplus in there if those costs are going to be consolidated in some
Adjusted.
fashion.
That's a nice way to put it.
So
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to discuss some of those staffing numbers? More than
Not,
that?
not right now,
Okay.
because I think are we going into an executive session?
We do need to have an executive
Yeah.
session this evening, yes.
Yeah, and so the staffing stuff with PD, we can talk about Monday. Thank you, Richard.
All right. any
Thank you
further
for all your
discussion?
information.
Any
I
further questions on
appreciate
the budget, the 2022 budget? There's gonna be, obviously, hopefully many more conversations to get council any data that's needed to progress forward. As I mentioned, I'm trying to get some meetings scheduled with folks to review the budget worksheet that I used to develop this budget. It's very comprehensive. I did share the payroll budget sheets today. That pretty much covers everybody in the city. I think there's some details in there that I hope that people don't miss. It's very detailed. But at this point, if there's no further questions to discuss the budget, but again, please feel free. If you have more questions, email, and I'll try to get them back to you as quickly as possible. Seeing none, there's nobody here for public comment. I'll entertain a motion for executive session, most by Council Canal, second by Council. Sorry, thank you, Dean, to discuss pending and potential litigation. If any, all in favor?
Aye.
I didn't hear the second.
Pardon?
Me,
Second.
I was the second.
Yeah. In favor, opposed? We're
Are
now
we-
in executive session.
And I told Kate when you call her. so you get
All right,
to-
Caitlin, I'll give you a call on your cell phone, is fine?
Yep, I'm gonna mute.
Okay, thank you.
I don't,
I can't hear you.
You can make sure to be good when you first
Yes.
begin.
Yep, thank you, guys. See you back there.
I'm just here with all my friends.
Okay.
In your head or? All your friends, yeah, who else?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's nobody here with me.
All right.
They all left.
All right, back from executive session, there's no action to be taken by this council. I'll take a motion to come out of executive session, motion by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Canales. All in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? No new business to come before this committee. I take a motion to adjourn. Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Canales. All in favor?
Bye.
We are now adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great night, everybody.
See ya. Yep.